continuing with the early medieval India, next theme that we will be covering is the Rajput period. Areas where questions may be possible from: origin of the Rajputs, the rise of the Rajputs. When I say rise of the Rajputs, I mean the consolidation of their political power. Right? The political structure of the Rajputs and the Rajput society. Now, with regards to the origin of the Rajputs, there is a debate in history. There are a few points of view. One arguing for the foreign origin of the Rajputs, that the Rajputs were actually the descendants of some foreigners. One view says that they were of tribal origin. One view says that the Rajputs were no one else rather than the descendants of the ancient Kshatriyas. So, this view rejects the foreign or tribal origin of the Rajputs. Another point of view which has gained more and more currency with the passage of time is that they were of mixed ancestry or mixed origin. Right? Now, what comes to your mind when you hear the word Rajput? क्या मतलब होता है इसका? रूलिंग पावर. आप बताइए दीपक. Descendants of kings. The word Rajput is actually derived from a Sanskrit word Rajput or Rajput. Raj means king and Putra is son. So the Rajputs at least imagined themselves or projected themselves as the son of the ancient kings, sons of ancient kings. And being sons of ancient kings, they claimed legitimacy within the increasingly strict and rigid Varnashram Dharma system. The term Rajput begins emerging in contemporary literature from the 6th century onwards. And their emergence appears to be sudden and accidental in nature. But on closer observation, a complex pattern for their emergence and rise appears. Okay? That is what we have to talk about. Now, regarding the foreign origin of the Rajput, some historians such as Vincent Arthur Smith, इन्होंने क्या बोला है? That the Rajputs were descendants of some foreign ruling groups who had come to India and settled in India in antiquity. Can you name such foreign ruling groups? The Shakas, Kushans, Hunas, etc. Okay? Now, they had come to India during the post-Mauryan and Gupta and post-Gupta periods, etc. And they had stayed behind. Now, what is the similarity between the Rajputs of this period onwards and these groups? Both of them were fire worshippers. Okay? Since both of them worshipped fire, historians such as V.A. Smith argue that both were belonging to the same group. They had simply arrived in India and become Indianized. एक process हुआ known as Kshatriyization or Rajputization, right? And these foreign groups assumed Kshatriya identity or Rajput identity. And ये identity देने में इनकी मदद किसने करी? Which group? Only Brahmins had the authority to do it. ठीक है? So this is what has been argued. Then there is the theory of tribal origin also. यहाँ पे क्या बोला गया है? That with the expansion of agriculture now spread to some areas where tribals used to inhabit in the earlier period, right? With the growth of prosperity, some of the tribal groups became locally powerful. They constructed their own forts, raised their own armies, collected their own revenues, and hence became entrenched, right? However, they were once again part of the same Varnashram Dharma system. They had been incorporated into the mainstream society along with the spread of agriculture. Now, in order to establish themselves as the legitimate rulers of their areas, what did they require? Once again, Kshatriyization or Rajputization. Okay? And once again, whose help did they take? The priestly class, the Brahmins. So how was this Kshatriyization or Rajputization done? Brahmins were in charge of maintaining the dynastic records of various ruling groups. Okay? They were also in charge of creating the religious literature which was expanding at that point of time. The most popular devotional literature which was expanding at that point of time was which kind of literature? Purans. Purans में क्या एलिमेंट होता है जो इस काम के लिए यूजफुल है? The idea of Vansha, that means genealogy of gods and goddesses, genealogies of ancient dynasties. ठीक है? So these new dynasties, whether they were foreign or tribal, their dynastic rule, their dynastic line was now linked to either ancient kings or to ancient gods and goddesses mentioned in the Purans. Okay? So through this process, Kshatriyization or Rajputization took place. Further, we also have evidence of some purification rituals, right? Since these were of foreign origin or tribal origin, they were considered inferior to the ancient Aryans according to the Varnashram Dharma system. If they had to be incorporated in a relatively senior position within this rigidly hierarchical social system, they needed to be purified. And वो purification कैसे होगा? to the performance of some yagyas, right? And hence ये जो आप लोगों ने सुना होगा Agnikul theory of the origin of Rajputs, right? What does this state? It was first suggested by Colonel James Todd on the basis of bardic records. अब 6th century onwards, the various Rajput rulers started maintaining bards. Bards कौन होते हैं? Court poets, right? And what kind of literature were these court poets producing? Bardic literature. What is the nature of bardic literature? It is eulogistic in nature, written in praise of the patron, mainly focusing upon the military and cultural exploits of the rulers, right? Now, according to such bardic literature, on top of Mount Abu, sage Vashisht had performed a sacrifice, and out of that sacrificial fire, out of that Agni Kund, emerged 4 warriors. Who were these 4 warriors? Chalukya, Chauhan, Parmar and Pratihar, right? What does this indicate? This indicates that these were the sons of fire, and fire has a purifying effect. Thus, they were purified Kshatriyas or Rajputs. They had shed their foreign or tribal origin. Is this much clear? Sure. Then, there was one particular Rajasthani historian, Gauri Shankar Hirachand Ojha, who suggested that the Rajputs of the early medieval period were neither of foreign origin nor of tribal origin. Rather, they were the descendants of ancient Kshatriyas. He has used some religious evidence to support this idea. He argued that fire was considered to be sacred not only for the Rajputs and foreigners but also for the Aryans. Okay? And thus there is a strong case to be made for the Kshatriya origin of the Rajputs rather than the foreign or tribal origin of the Rajputs. He also argued that within the rigid social system, it would not have been possible for these outsiders or tribals to assume the position of political leadership. It could not have been practically possible, right? However, this idea has largely been rejected. It has been contested by other historians. Okay? Then, summing it all up, historians such as D.P. Chatterjee have argued that the Rajputs had a mixed origin. The question of whether they had a foreign origin or an indigenous origin, that is not the relevant question. यहाँ पे हमको क्या understand करना है? The process of the emergence of Rajputs. So they have said that any lineage or tribal group with political, military and economic power, these are all instruments of real power. had a natural tendency to seek ritual power, and the association of real power with ritual power would have given them sovereign status. Now, real power could be acquired through material means. However, the acquisition of ritual power required ideological means, right? And for this, Brahmins played an important role in the Kshatriyization and Rajputization process. Therefore, irrespective of the background of such groups, all of them invariably assumed the Rajput identity within the Kshatriya Varna. Okay? So this is what has been argued as the latest explanation for the origin of the Rajput. समझ में आया है इतना? लिख लें इसको. कई सारे हिस्टोरियंस है, फॉर एग्जाम्पल विंसेंट स्मिथ, कर्नल टॉड, आरजी भंडारकर, बहुत सारे हिस्टोरियंस हैं, उन्होंने बोला है ट्राइबल ओरिजिन. नाउ राइट डाउन, गिव द हेडिंग origin of the Rajputs hyphen a historical debate. देखो, the term Rajput is derived from the Sanskrit word Rajputra, which literally means the descendant of the king or son of the king. Son of the king. Full stop. Next point. This term began regularly appearing in contemporary Sanskrit literature from the 6th century onwards. From the 6th century onwards. Next point. The Rajputs refer to a group of powerful ruling lineages which established their control over parts of northern, central and western India during the early medieval age. And ruled for almost 500 years. Next point. They made grand contributions to the growth of art, architecture literature, culture, religion, and have been romanticized for their strong system of ethics and warrior lifestyle. Next point. However, the question of their origin remains a matter of intense historical debate. With multiple theories emerging to explain it. Full stop. The following is a survey. Of this historiography. पहला सब हेडिंग दो, theory of foreign origin. इसने प्रपोज किया Vincent Smith, right? Write down in the form of points. Proposed by V.A. Smith. Next point. It argues that the Rajputs are descendants of foreign groups such as the Shakas, Kushans, Huns, etc. Next point. Smith argued that both the Rajputs and these foreign groups were fire worshippers. And thus belonged to the same stock. ठीक है? Are we aware of any previous occurrences of the incorporation of foreigners into the mainstream Hindu society? पता है हमको? Example, Kushans, Shakas, for example, they assumed Kshatriya status. Matrimonial relations also emerged between these foreign ruling groups and Indian ruling lineages, such as Satavahanas and Shakas के बीच में शादियां हुई थी. For example, one of the daughters of Rudradaman was married to a Satvahana king also, right? So it is not outside the realm of possibility that these foreigners had been incorporated into the society and gradually been Rajputized. Okay, write down. Next point. B.A. Smith further points out that the incorporation of foreigners into the society as Kshatriyas was not an isolated occurrence. Full stop. Subpoint. Occurrence or isolated phenomena, whatever you want. Isolated occurrence. Subpoint. Earlier foreign groups such as the Kushans were admitted into the fourfold Varna system as second-class Kshatriyas. To which sacrifice? The Vratyastoma sacrifice. To the Vratyastoma sacrifice. The Vratyastoma sacrifice. Stop. Next subpoint. Similarly, the Shakas also adopted the practice of making matrimonial relationships with indigenous Brahmin and Kshatriya lineages. Example, Rudradaman married one of his daughters to a Satvahana ruler. Full stop. Next main point. This process of assigning the Rajput status to outsiders has been termed as Kshatriyization. This term was coined by Herman Kulke and Kshatriyization in brackets Herman Kulke or Rajputization. This term was coined by H. Sinha. Okay? So this is the theory of foreign origin of the Rajput. Next, number 2, tribal origin theory. proponents include कौन कौन है? B.A. Smith, कर्नल टॉड, R.G. भंडारकर, ईश्वरी प्रसाद, एटसेट्रा. ठीक है. What is the main argument of this theory? Main predicate of this theory? That with the expansion of agriculture, some tribal groups became locally powerful and desired local authority. For that, this process was. Okay, write down. According to this theory, with the expansion of agriculture, during the early medieval age, so why was this agriculture expansion happening? Land grants and expansion of irrigation facilities. Due to the expansion of during the early medieval age, due to the proliferation of land grants, and expansion of irrigation facilities, some formerly tribal regions became economically significant. Next point. At the same time, some tribal groups gained prosperity due to which they acquired local influence. Full stop. Next point. However, they had been incorporated into the mainstream Varna system in relatively lower positions. ठीक है. Next point. They naturally tended to legitimize their role or to legitimize their influence, which was possible through the process of Kshatriyization or Rajputization. Was this a new development in Indian history या फिर पहले से चल रहा था? पहले से चल रहा था. For example, the Nagas were probably a tribal group who had benefited from the expansion of agriculture during the post-Mauryan period and hence had emerged as a powerful dynasty in North India. Dharma Shastras also recognized the legitimacy of the Naga dynasty. Therefore, Dharma Shastras also sanctioned such a upward social mobility of powerful groups. ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं है कि साफ मना हो गया था. Although the system was quite rigid, there was still some space for upward social mobility within the rigid system. ठीक है, write down next point. Such phenomena had been witnessed earlier as well. Example, in the case of the Naga dynasty, during the post-Mauryan and early Gupta period. Naga dynasty during the post-Mauryan and early medieval period. Sorry, early Gupta period. Early Gupta period. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखो. According to Colonel Todd, many of the Rajput lineages had emerged from aboriginal groups. Aboriginal groups मतलब indigenous tribal groups. ठीक है, aboriginal groups, ABORGINAL, aboriginal group. Example, the Gonds, a tribe of central India. Some of the Gonds became Chandelas. Kharwar became Gahadwals. Bhils became Gohilyas or Gohilas. Bhars became Rathors, etc. क्या रीजन? खाड़वार तो ये गंगा यमुना दोआब रीजन में. ठीक है, भील्स साउथ ईस्टर्न राजस्थान वाले रीजन में, भार्स जोधपुर वाले रीजन में, मारवाड़ वाले रीजन में. गोंड्स, चंडीलास, मालवा और सेंट्रल इंडिया वाले रीजन. भील्स ये जो उदयपुर वाला रीजन है ना, मेवाड़ वाला रीजन, मेवाड़ आप बोल. भील्स मेवाड़, भार्स मारवाड़, खारवार दोआब रीजन, गोंड्स सेंट्रल इंडिया, मालवा. ठीक है, तो अकॉर्डिंग टू Vincent Smith, Ishwari Prasad, Colonel Todd, this was the reason for the emergence of the Rajputs. नेक्स्ट कौन सा थ्योरी है? थ्योरी ऑफ मिक्स्ड ओरिजिन. क्या लिखवाया था आपको? Ancient Kshatriyas. ठीक है. So number 3 you can write. Ancient Kshatriya origin. And Kshatriya origin. Vincent Smith proposed the ideas of foreign as well as tribal origin, both of them. So this theory, who proposed it? Gauri Shankar Hirachand Ojha. So you can write first point, proponent. Gauri Shankar Hirachand. Write down. Next point. According to this theory, the Rajputs did not belong to foreign or tribal origin. Foreign or tribal origin. Next point. Rather, they were the descendants of the Kshatriyas of the solar and lunar dynasties. Solar and lunar dynasty. Solar dynasty Suryavanshi, lunar dynasty Chandravanshi. Point. He argues that like Aryans, they worshipped fire, which was not only the tradition of foreigners. ठीक है. Next point. Only the tradition of foreigners. Point. This theory is also supported by the bardic narratives. ठीक है. तो bardic narratives, वो जो भाट चरण वगैरह लिख रहे थे, none of them would say that my patron belongs to a foreign group, he is an outsider, or he belongs to a tribal group relatively so lower social rank. वो हमेशा क्या बोलेंगे? That my patron is the descendant of ancient Kshatriya. So this has been used by G.H. Ojha in order to support his theory of indigenous Kshatriya origin. Next point, write down. The word Rajputra is also mentioned in the Purans, and thus Ojha argues that it enjoyed, or this group enjoyed religious sanction which would not have been possible under the increasingly rigid Varnashram dharma system. Next point. The term Rajputra has also been used by Banbhat. Banbhat याद है? Court historian of, court author of Harshvardhan. Used by Banbhat to denote, been used by Banbhat to denote a high-born Kshatriya. A high-born Kshatriya. Full stop. Okay? So these are the arguments that G.H. Ojha has used to support his theory. Next main point, write down. However, this theory has largely been rejected. By other prominent historians. On historical grounds. ठीक है? नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखो. नेक्स्ट मेन पॉइंट. In recent decades, the debate surrounding the exact origin of the Rajputs has shifted. Full stop. It has moved away from the traditional controversy of foreign versus local origin. Towards the idea that the origin of the Rajputs was part of a complex socio-economic and political process. Okay? So old controversies have become less relevant now, and now the focus has shifted from the exact ancestry of the Rajputs to the process of their emergence. Fourth वाला theory लिखो. Theory of mixed origin. Proponent D.P. Chatterjee. Next point. In the context of the shifting landscape of the debate, it has been argued has been argued that as a social group, irrespective of whether it was foreign, tribal, or Aryan, emerged as a dominant political, military, and economic force. Political, military, and economic force. Within brackets, you can write that is acquired real power. Close brackets. There was a natural tendency to seek ritual power in order to gain legitimate sovereignty. Full stop. Next point. This could be accomplished through the process of Kshatriyization or Rajputization for which the role of the Brahmins was crucial. Next point. With the assistance of Brahmins, these emergent social groups were able to insert their lineage in the mythico-historical genealogical records of ancient dynasties and gods. Which records are we talking about? That is the Purans. That is the Purans. Full stop. Next point. This process of the acquisition of real and ritual power was assisted by the wider socio-economic and political milieu. Socio-economic and political milieu. Milieu का मतलब environment, ठीक है? So, what were the major socio-economic and political developments taking place during this period, early medieval age? क्या देखा है? Land grants, expansion of agriculture, growing rigidity of the society, the growth of bhakti and temple cult. All of these things were used by these groups in order to entrench themselves in the local sphere and then try to expand outwards through territorial conquests against some other ruling lineages who had emerged in the surrounding regions. Okay, write down. The contemporary socio-economic and political milieu, ये लिख लिया ना? सब पॉइंट लिखो. The characteristic developments of this age including land grants, comma, the expansion of agriculture, comma, the growth of bhakti and the temple cult, growth of bhakti and the temple cult, comma, the proliferation of castes, and the peasantization of tribals became the main mediums or main media for the origin of the Rajputs, as these factors converged to facilitate local power and ultimately state formation. ये समझ में आया है? नेक्स्ट सब पॉइंट. With the consolidation of local power, comma, these lineages or these Rajput lineages began competing for supremacy leading to a complex process. केवल वॉरफेयर होगा या अलायंसेस भी होंगे? Both. Leading to a complex process of conflict and cooperation. What is going to be the result of this? The expansion of some lineages, warfare, matrimonial alliances, and emergence of new Rajput identities from the older ones as well. ठीक है? conflict and cooperation leading to uh, of conflict and cooperation, full stop. This led to rising warfare, matrimonial alliances, the growth of some powerful lineages, disappearance of others, and emergence of new lines or emergence of new lineages. ठीक है? So this is how we explain the origin of Rajputs. Take down a question. On the basis of historiography, discuss the origin of the Rajputs. In marks, 200 words. हो जाएगा? Will you be able to condense the discussion that we have had? Second theme क्या देखना है हमें? The rise of the Rajputs, the expansion of Rajput influence. इसको हम ब्रीफली ऑलरेडी डील कर चुके हैं. जो लास्ट वाला पोर्शन है ना हमारे प्रीवियस डिस्कशन का, हमको उसी को और एक्सपैंड करके क्लासिफाई करना है अलग अलग हेडिंग्स में. You have to refine the categories for our discussion with the help of certain examples. Now, what do you think were the factors for the spread of Rajput influence in Malwa, North India, Western India? क्या factors थे? एक तो कोई centralized power नहीं थी, so there was a power vacuum, and vacuum always invites some movement. ठीक है? तो कोई ना कोई पावरफुल ग्रुप इमर्ज होके उस वैक्यूम को फिल करने की कोशिश करे. वैक्यूम ड्यू टू political fragmentation, what else? For new groups to emerge, they will first have to acquire real power na. How were they being able to acquire real power? What was the medium for that? पावर के लिए सबसे पहले आपको क्या चाहिए? रिसोर्सेस चाहिए, राइट? एंड ये रिसोर्सेज इनको कैसे मिल रहे हैं? हाउ आर दीज एक्सपैंड द रिसोर्सेज अवेलेबल टू देम? नॉट ओनली थ्रू वॉर्स बट प्राइमरीली बिकॉज ऑफ द एक्सपेंशन ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर. ठीक है? growth of the local economy to the expansion of एग्रीकल्चर. ठीक है. फर्दर और क्या रिक्वायरमेंट था? बताइए. अरे, they should have the space to exercise some sovereign powers ना. तो वो स्पेस इनको क्यों मिल रहा था? Because at this point of time a new socio-economic and institution was expanding, which resulted in the shrinking of royal central authority and the enhancement of authority in the peripheral regions. किस फिनोमेना की बात कर रहे हैं? Not Varna system, rather feudalism, right? So with the growth of feudalism, some of the sovereign authority was devolved to the local elites, right? And thus they were able to expand their power base by using this sovereign authority, including the power to collect revenue, maintain an army, construct forts, administer justice, look after administration in their local areas. ठीक है? What else? The political instability of this region also gave an opportunity for these ambitious groups to climb one step after the other up the political ladder. The political situation was extremely chaotic, characterized by constant warfare, right? अगर ये political situation stable होता तो would some of these groups have been able to rise to the very top of political power of the pyramid? नहीं हो पाता. Chaos is a ladder. बैटमैन देखा होगा, उसमें ये लाइन है, right? तो the political instability of this period presented an opportunity for the projection of power by some of the ambitious Rajput ruling lineages. As a result of this political instability, one profession had become extremely important. वॉरफेयर के लिए किसकी जरूरत होती है? किस ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल की? वॉरियर्स की जरूरत होती है, राइट? तो कांस्टेंट वॉरफेयर had also enhanced the importance of groups with the ability to mobilize warriors. The rulers were becoming increasingly dependent upon their feudal lords in order to support them during times of war, and hence the ability to mobilize warriors was used as a bargaining chip by those groups who had the ability to do this. तो अब ये क्या बोलेंगे राजा से, that if you want our support, we want something in return. And what did they demand in return? More land, more authority, and matrimonial relationship. So if you want me to protect your dynasty's interests, I should not remain as an outsider. I should become an insider. I should have a vested interest. It is both in your interest as well as in my interest. ठीक है? अच्छा. Then, as these groups finally established their control, they were also going to face the same challenges, same problems. Right? अब problem क्या हुआ था? That even after the emergence of the Rajputs, there was no strong centralized authority over the whole of North India. A multi-state system had emerged, right? And as a result of this, one Rajput kingdom was constantly in a state of war against other Rajput kingdoms. So how are they going to ensure their security, their own expansion? कैसे होगा? अब ये देखो कि इनके और इनके बीच में हमेशा लड़ाई चल रही है. Is there any scope of cooperation? नहीं हो सकता है. So if the ruler has to search for some ally, where will he have to do this? And the same situation exists here, here on all sides. हर जगह पे warfare चल रहा है. क्या avenue क्या बचा हुआ है? Inside the kingdom only, within the kingdom only. तो कैसे होगा ये? See, these Rajput groups were essentially closed lineage groups. ठीक है? Now closed lineage group का मतलब क्या होता है? Outsiders were not allowed. These people have a very strong lineage based identity. That means family identity or clan identity or regional identity. They believe that they are all descended from the same common ancestor. Actually थे या नहीं थे, that is a different matter, but they strongly believe this idea, and thus they will try to keep a real authority contained within this closed group, right? In this scenario, what is going to happen? Since the king is the descendant of the same ancestor, this feudal lord is the descendant of the same ancestor, this feudal lord is the descendant of the same ancestor. तो क्या होगा इसकी वजह से? Cooperation तो होगा, but there is a high chance of competition as well. For example, this king is claiming that I have the legitimate right to rule because I am the son of Fala and Fala, and I am the grandson of this and this person. I am a descendant of this great ancient king. He says that I also have all those qualities. Why should you be king? Why should I not be king? And because of this particular limitation, a process known as proliferation of lineages took place. Okay? For example, Parmars, a group associated with which region? Parmars primarily कहाँ के? Malwa region के, right? Now let us suppose this is the Parmar realm. They have taken over this area. Now the king can either bring all of this area under his own control, or he can choose to reward his brothers, cousins, uncles, etc. तो क्या करेंगे in most cases? because of the limitations and pressures created by the complexities of being a close lineage group, in order to nullify internal competition, ये अपनी पावर को अपने फैमिली मेंबर्स में, क्लैन मेंबर्स में डिवॉल्व कर देंगे, डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर देंगे. This territory is going to be divided among the other members of this clan in order to avoid internal competition. ठीक है, तो अब इस रीजन में कंपटीशन नहीं होगा. कंपटीशन कहां पे होगा? यहां पे होगा. ठीक है, एंड वंस अगेन दी सेम प्रोसेस इज गोइंग टू टेक प्लेस एज इट हैड टेकन प्लेस इन दी अर्लियर रीजन. ये लोग कंपीट करेंगे, इनके बीच में से एक एज दी सुपीरियर इमर्ज होगा. Now, this whoever emerges as the supreme is going to start competing against his own cousin and also against his other neighbors, right? So the same pattern is going to repeat itself, leading to the proliferation of lineages. तो एक ही lineage में से कई सारी lineages emerge हो सकती हैं. हाँ, सेंट्रल इंडिया में, वेस्टर्न इंडिया में, नॉर्दर्न इंडिया में, इसीलिए तो इतने सारे ग्रुप्स ऑफ राजपूत इमर्ज हुए. गोहिल्याज, सॉरी ये राठौर, चौहान, परमार्स, प्रतिहार, चालुक्य, सोलंकी, गढ़वाल्स, कालाचूरीज, ये लोग कौन थे? ऑल ऑफ देम वर बिलोंगिंग टू डिफरेंट ग्रुप्स, लेकिन कॉम्प्लेक्स प्रोसेस हुआ. मैट्रिमोनियल अलायंसेस हुए, कंपटीशन हुआ. Some lineages were uprooted, some new lineages emerged due to these complex intermixing, and all of them were seeking what? Ritual authority as well. तो सबने अपने अपने नाम पुराण्स में लिखवा दिए. They were confirmed by the bards as well as the Brahmins, right? So same process, same pattern is going to repeat itself again and again and again and again. ईस्टर्न इंडिया और डीप साउथ में एक्सपैंड क्यों नहीं कर पाए? बिकॉज ओवर देयर सम अदर लिनिएजेस वर ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट. सम राजपूत लिनिएजेस, सम नॉन राजपूत लिनिएजेस. फॉर एग्जांपल डीप साउथ में पहले तो डेक्कन में राष्ट्रकूटास, फिर डीप साउथ में चोलास, वहां पे एक्सपैंड करने की पॉसिबिलिटी नहीं थी, राइट? तो दैट इज वन रीजन. इन ईस्टर्न इंडिया पालास वर देयर, फॉलोड बाय द सेनास एक्सेट्रा. वहां पे एक्सपैंड करने की उतनी ज्यादा पॉसिबिलिटी नहीं थी. ऑल्दो सम राजपूत लिनिएजेस आल्सो इमर्ज्ड इन ईस्टर्न इंडिया, ओडिशा वाले रीजन में, छत्तीसगढ़ वाले रीजन में, इवन पार्ट्स ऑफ बंगाल, राइट? ऐसा नहीं है कि नहीं इमर्ज हुए. एग्जाम्पल्स वेरी ऑब्सक्योर हिस्ट्री, so not many are. तो एक तो ये प्रोसेस होगा. देन अच्छा, मैट्रिमोनियल अलायंसेस वी हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड. So this was the process of the rise of Rajput. Now, if you were to study the contemporary sources, it would emerge that the Rajputs have emerged suddenly out of nowhere. But the process of the rise of the Rajputs was a long drawn out and complex process. यहाँ पे कोई एक सिंपल पैटर्न ऑफ डेवलपमेंट नहीं है, कोई यूनिफॉर्म पैटर्न ऑफ इमर्जेंस एंड एक्सपेंशन नहीं है. अलग अलग जगहों में विद डिफरेंट लीनिएजेस डिफरेंट एक्सपीरियंसेस आर देयर. ठीक है, एंड दिस इज आल्सो रिफ्लेक्टेड इन द कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी ऑफ द बार्डिक नैरेटिव्स. कहीं पे क्लेम करते हैं दैट माय पेट्रन बिलोंग्स टू द चंद्रवंशी, ही इज अ चंद्रवंशी. सम क्लेम that Suryavanshi, some claim that he is a Naga, etc. So we don't know for sure कि expansion कैसे हुआ, but one thing is sure that it was a highly complicated. Give the heading: Rise of the Rajputs. The rise of the Rajputs to political prominence appears to be a sudden and accidental occurrence. Sudden and accidental occurrence. There is a question. So can we conclude on the lines of mixed origin or still an open debate? So now वही बात है कि the idea of what exactly is the origin that has not been settled, that remains an open debate. Landscape अब shift हो गया है towards understanding the process of the emergence of Rajputs, origin of Rajputs. तो mixed origin का जो theory है that has become more and more acceptable at this point of time. लेकिन जो पुराना वाला डिबेट है वो अभी भी सेटल नहीं हुआ है. Some of the positions of the old debate are still valid. कुछ ग्रुप जो है वो फॉरेन ओरिजिन के थे, कुछ ग्रुप्स ट्राइबल ओरिजिन के थे, एंड मे बी सम ऑफ द लिनेजेस may in fact have been descendants of ancient Kshatriyas also. That may also be a possibility. लेकिन वो अब क्वेश्चन रेलेवेंट ही नहीं रह गया है. Now the question of the process of the rise of Rajputs has become more relevant. That is the current position. Okay. All right. What have we written right now? Sudden and accidental. Right. Next point लिखो. However, a deeper analysis shows that their rise was not an accidental. Their rise was not an accidental development. These groups emerged within the existing political hierarchical system. And thus, their emergence should be seen as a process. Should be seen as a process. ठीक है? Now, next point लिखो. It must be kept in mind. That during the early medieval age, it was becoming increasingly possible to distribute political authority on lineage basis within the framework of a monarchical system. Within the framework of a monarchical system. And why was this becoming increasingly possible? वही जो हमने आइडियाज डिस्कस किए हैं, जो सोशियो पॉलिटिकल एंड इकोनॉमिक मिलियू डेवलप हो रहा था, कैरेक्टराइज्ड बाय व्हाट? ग्रोइंग फ्यूडलाइजेशन, लैंड ग्रांट्स, द राइज ऑफ भक्ति, expansion of agriculture, temple cult, the emergence of a Brahmin Rajput nexus, Brahmin Kshatriya nexus, right? So that is why it was possible for the power to be decentralized within the framework of monarchical centralization. And power किसके बीच में distributed थी? Between members of the same lineage. ठीक है? That is the argument that we are making. Now, next point लिखो. The process of the rise of Rajputs consisted of several aspects. Such as number 1, the proliferation of lineages. Now, according to the Parmar Bardic literature, Dhanirvara, he was a Parmar ruler. Parmars originally belonging to Malwa. He distributed newly conquered lands in Marwar and Mewar among his 9 brothers. And this probably explains the emergence of cadet branches of the Parmars in the region of Rajasthan. Cadet branches मतलब cousin branches हो गए. Write down. According to the next point. According to the Parmar Bardic narratives, proliferation of lineages, ये जो आपका पहला सब हेडिंग हो गया, प्रोसेस में अलग अलग एस्पेक्ट्स है ना. तो फर्स्ट एस्पेक्ट इज दिस proliferation of lineages. Now we need to explain it with the help of some examples. सेकंड नहीं है, उसी का पॉइंट है ये जो पहला वाला है ना, proliferation of lineages, this should take as a sub heading. तो इसके नीचे पॉइंट सब लिखने शुरू करो. According to the Parmar Bardic narratives, Dhanirvara of the Parmar dynasty occupied the region of Mewar and Marwar and divided it among his 9 brothers, resulting in the emergence of at least 4 cadet branches. These 4 cadet branches of Parmars in Rajasthan, including the Parmars of Abu, Parmars of Inmal, the Parmars of Jalor, and the Parmars of Bagada. Once again, this kind of development was not an isolated development. Among Chauhans also this was visible. Next point, write down next main point. Apart from the Chauhans of Bharuch, cadet branches emerged at Abu, Pratapgarh, Nadol, and Chakambri. ठीक है. Prithviraj Chauhan III, member of this dynasty, Shakambri lineage. ठीक है. तो एक तो हमें ये देखने के लिए मिलता है, proliferation of lineages. From one lineage, multiple other lineages are emerging. Write down. The proliferation of lineages can be understood in the context of ABCA, diffusing internal tensions among powerful clan members and kings. B, consolidating power over newly conquered territory. Consolidating power over newly conquered territory. And C, integration of regions recently brought under the plow. ठीक है. तो जहां जहां पे एग्रीकल्चर का एक्सपेंशन होगा, land grants would be made by the rulers to some senior members of their clan in order to integrate these regions into the mainstream economy and society. ठीक है. So this is one thing that has taken place, proliferation of lineages. Second, right, the formation of new lineages and replacement of old ones by new ones. Formation of new lineages, how do you think this was happening? नए राजपूत lineages कैसे इमर्ज हो रहे थे? To Rajputization of different groups, tribal, foreign, indigenous, etc. So whichever group was finding itself in a position of real authority was assuming the Rajput lineage, and replacement of old lineages by new lineages कैसे हो रहा था? Through territorial conquest, right? Write down. The emergence of new lineages happened as the result of the colonization of new areas. Colonization of new areas with the expansion of agriculture. With the expansion of agriculture. And annexation by means of military strength. By means of military strength. ठीक है? Full stop. Often, next point, often this colonization took place in tribal areas. Took place in tribal areas. And tribals were either subdued or emerged as a new lineage through the process of Rajputization. Some examples you can write down. Example number 1, suppression of tribals का एक example और एक example for the Rajputization of tribals. Number 1, Abhiraz, the Abhiraz of Gujarat and southern Rajasthan were suppressed by the Parmars. Were suppressed by the Parmars. Second example, number 2. On the other hand, some tribal groups underwent the process of Rajputization. एग्जाम्पल दे सकते हो? आज ही की क्लास में हमने डिस्कस किया है. Khars became Rathors, right? Kharwars becomes Gahadwals, etc. So anyone you can write. Example: Kharwars, Kharwar, Kharwar became Gahadwals. Hills became Guhilyas. ठीक है? नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखो. नेक्स्ट मेन पॉइंट. the replacement of existing lineages by new ones also took place. Example, the Chauhans uprooted the Parmars of Jalore. Which became their new capital. Okay. Similarly, Chauhans had also conquered the region of Bharuch from the Pratihars. So पहले Pratihars का rule था, later it came under Chauhan rule. Write down next subpoint. Similarly, the Chauhans took the region of Bharuch from the Pratihars. Okay. So this was another medium for the expansion of Rajput power. Third, consolidation of lineage power. How did this happen? How did the new rulers consolidate power in their own area? Distribution of land grants made to whom? Both Brahmins as well as other powerful members of their clan. Write down. Land grants emerged as a major medium, as an important medium of consolidating power. Full stop. Rulers secured their position by assigning lands and distributing power to Brahmins and other clan members. Okay. Another way in which power was consolidated by not only the rulers but also by their feudatories. कैसे? Constructing forts, garrisoning them, right? तो forts का फायदा क्या होगा? It is a military establishment used for further expansion. It can become a base of operations. And forts बनाए कहाँ पे जा रहे थे? Far away from the capitals, right? In the agricultural zones. So forts were also useful for controlling the rural zones surrounding. Okay? Write down. The construction of forts on a large scale also consolidated Rajput power. The point, not only were they important for offensive and defensive purposes, were they important for offensive and defensive purposes, comma, they were also crucial for controlling the countryside, where the bulk of production was taking place. ठीक है? Another medium of consolidating Rajput power, ऐसे? Since the lineage identity was very strong, how was it strengthened further? To matrimonial alliances, marriage, right? Write down. Next subpoint. Matrimonial alliances emerged as an important medium for consolidating power. While most alliances were of which nature? Interclan or intraclan? Intraclan, within the same clan group, were of intraclan nature, while most alliances were of intraclan nature, comma, interclan alliances were also in vogue. For example, Parmars formed matrimonial alliances with both the Chauhans as well as Rashtrakutas. Next point, write down. Number 4. देखो, the political vacuum of the early medieval age following the death of Harshvardhan resulted in a political vacuum. Sorry, क्या लिखा है अभी आपने? अच्छा नहीं, the political vacuum पहले लिख चुके हैं ना. Political vacuum of the early medieval age following the death of Harshvardhan facilitated the rise of Rajput groups. Next point. Next main point, number 5. The expansion of agriculture. Resulting in local prosperity. resulting in local prosperity. Gave these Rajput lineages the material ability to expand power. Next, number 6. The growing feudalism of the age was also conducive to the expansion of Rajput authority as they enjoyed remarkable autonomy within their estates. Number 7. The political instability of the period characterized by constant warfare presented an opportunity of the contemporary period. Characterized by constant warfare presented an opportunity for ambitious groups to rise to the top. The point further, it also enhanced the importance of groups with the ability to mobilize warriors. Stop. Next point, naturally, with the rulers becoming increasingly dependent on these groups, they devolved more and more authority onto them, and in some cases also entered into marital relations with powerful groups. Full stop. Next point. This provided the emerging Rajput lineages, a gateway to royal power. Gateway to royal power. ठीक है? एंड कंक्लूजन में लिख लो, as a result of this complex process, as a result of this complex process, comma, multiple lineages of Rajputs emerged in North India, full stop, in North India during the early medieval age, Stop. With time, comma, the political landscape kept shifting continuously, and on the eve of Turkish conquest, North India was divided primarily among the following Rajput lineages, and their cadet branches, कौन से राजपूत lineages on the eve of Turkish conquest? The Chauhans of Ajmer, Gahadwals of Kannauj, the Solankis of Gujarat, the Parmars of Malwa, the Chandelas of Khajuraho, and the Kalachuris of Tripuri. ठीक है? So this was the process of the rise of Rajput. On a question, examine the process of the rise of Rajputs and the factors behind it during the early medieval age. marks or 200 words. किसके बारे में बात करनी है हमको? दी proliferation of lineages, the emergence of new lineages, and decline of old ones. Consolidation of power by the lineages, the political vacuum in North India ever since the death of Harshvardhan, the rising feudalism, the atmosphere of political chaos and warfare, which provided an opportunity for the ambitious Rajput groups to rise in power and made the ruling class more and more dependent on these groups. This process is going to repeat itself again and again. And finally, conclusion में किस पॉइंट के ऊपर एम्फेसाइज करना है? दैट दिस वाज अ कांस्टेंट प्रोसेस दैट वाज गोइंग ऑन. ऐसा नहीं है कि स्टेबिलिटी कभी किसी भी स्टेज पे इमर्ज होगा. And finally, on the eve of the Turkish conquest of North India, as a result of this constant evolution, the 6 major ruling lineages had emerged. And यहां पे भी वही पॉलिटिकल पैटर्न दिख रहा था जो कि इसके पहले देखने के लिए मिला था. And hence they were unable to present any challenge to the rise of Turkish power in North. ठीक है? They were simply swept aside, क्योंकि खुद अंदर में ही इतना ज्यादा पॉलिटिकल चर्निंग हो रहा था that consolidation of power was not permanent in nature. ठीक? This is what we need to talk about. नेक्स्ट हमें बात करनी है अबाउट राजपूत पॉलिटी एंड सोसाइटी, साथ में इकोनॉमी के बारे में भी बात कर लेंगे. बट आई एम एंडिंग द क्लास राइट नाउ. पैर में थोड़ा ज्यादा दर्द हो रहा है. इसको हम नेक्स्ट वीक कवर करेंगे. राइट, 1 class we will take for this, then we will continue the other section. Previous slide कौन सा? एक और. Alright, online students, any doubts or queries, anything I can help you with? No doubts? Mehboob, Vaishnavi? No? Alright then. Thank you for your time guys. अगले हफ्ते